Okay, so picture this with me. It's dark, foggy out in the middle of nowhere. We're talking secluded mansion hidden away in the Arklay Mountains. Creepy, right? Well, it's July 1998, and things are about to get even creepier because gruesome murders have been reported just outside of Raccoon City.
Yeah, Raccoon City, the site of it all. Families are being attacked, torn apart, almost like something wild got a hold of them.
It was a bloodbath, gruesome discoveries that shook the city to its core.
Naturally, the Raccoon Police Department calls in their A-team, their Special Tactics and Rescue Service.
That's TARS.
Right, STARS. They send in Bravo team to investigate, but then they vanish, like ghosts.
Vanished without a trace. Communication went dark, no distress signals. It was like they flew into a storm and were never heard from again.
Spooky. And that's where our deep dive begins today. We're going through declassified STRS files, first-hand accounts from the members of Alpha Team.
Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine, the ones who walked into that nightmare and somehow made it out alive? Exactly. They faced the unknown and lived to tell the tale. But before we get into their harrowing story, can you give us a little background on STARS? What made them so elite?
These weren't your average beat cops. STRS was comprised of specialists highly trained in various disciplines: combat, demolition, even air support. They were brought in for situations that were beyond the scope of the RPD, which honestly created this underlying tension, almost a rivalry. And then you've got the Umbrella Corporation.
Umbrella, yeah, the pharmaceutical giant. Were they like everywhere in Raccoon City?
Practically ran the city. They had their fingers in everything, including the police department. So you start to see the web, right?
Right.
This mansion, this whole investigation, it was a powder keg ready to
Oh,
blow.
I bet. Now, we know Bravo Team was sent in first. What did Alpha Team find when they arrived at the mansion?
They discovered Bravo Team's helicopter, just abandoned in the woods near the mansion. But here's the kicker. Most of their equipment was still on board. It's like they just disappeared.
No way. See, that's what I don't get. Why would you just ditch a perfectly good helicopter, especially in the middle of an investigation like this? Unless
Huh?
something forced them to.
It's one of the first big mysteries that comes up when you really start piecing together the incident.
And I'm guessing there are even more mysteries, right?
Well, for starters, the details in Chris and Jill's accounts don't line up perfectly. Take Forrest Spear, for instance.
Or Spear.
Yeah, he was one of Bravo team members. Jill mentions finding his body on a terrace, mangled, horrific. Chris's report, however, makes no mention of this.
So we've got conflicting reports already. Talk about a headache.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle, but some of the pieces are missing and others just don't seem to fit.
Okay, so we've got a missing Bravo team, conflicting accounts of what happened to them, and a spooky, abandoned helicopter. What happens next?
Both Chris and Jill describe encountering, well, creatures, shortly after arriving at the mansion.
Creatures. What kind of creatures are we talking about here?
Specifically, they ran into a pack of zombie dogs. Cerberus, they're called.
Wait, zombie dogs. For a while, I thought that was just a silly rumor that people were exaggerating what they saw that night.
Oh, they're very real. And they're products of Umbrella's bioweapons research, genetically engineered using the T-virus.
The T-virus. We'll dive into the specifics of the virus a bit later, but right now, I just keep picturing a pack of these things roaming around a spooky mansion. It's giving me chills.
Imagine the terror those STRS members must have felt. They were completely outmatched, hunted through the forest by these creatures.
So they're running for their lives from zombie dogs,
Mhm.
and what do? They decide to take shelter in the mansion.
Remember, they were still trying to piece together what happened. They had no idea what they were really up against.
No idea of the true nature of the mansion or the horrors waiting inside. Man, talk about walking into a nightmare. So they make it inside. Do they find any trace of Bravo team? Any clues as to what happened?
More puzzles, more locked doors, secret passages. The mansion itself almost became a character in this terrifying story. And then there's Barry Burton.
Ah, Barry. He was with Jill in the mansion, right?
Yeah.
What's his deal? Loyal teammate or something else?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
See, in Jill's account, Barry's actions are, well, let's just say they raise some red flags.
Yeah, I always got bad vibes from him.
He seems to push Jill into dangerous situations, doesn't he?
Like that time in the dining room when he practically shoves her towards a zombie.
Exactly. And then there's the incident in the attic with the rope. Downright creepy.
Okay, see, now I'm creeped out. But you said, in Jill's account, did Chris have a different experience with Barry?
In Chris's version of events, Barry is helpful, even heroic at times, like when he saves Chris from that giant plant creature. What was it called?
Plant 42, right?
Yeah, Plant 42.
Yeah.
Scary stuff.
So which is it? Was Barry a good guy or a bad guy? Or maybe a little bit of both?
That's the thing about the Spencer Mansion incident. Truth becomes a slippery concept. There's this one moment, though, that really makes you question Barry's motives.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
Jill overhears a conversation between Barry and someone else. She can't quite make out everything, but she clearly hears the words family and destroy STARS.
Wait, destroy STARS. Now that changes things.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? Was Barry a true friend? Maybe his family was being threatened? Or was there something more going on beneath the surface?
It's like trying to tell who's infected and who isn't, right? You never know who to trust. So we're left with this mystery about Barry. Was he really going to betray his team? Or was he being forced to do something he didn't want to do? Awful. But amidst all of this suspicion and fear, Chris and Jill, they stumble upon something even bigger, even more disturbing.
Hid beneath the mansion, they find a hidden underground laboratory.
A secret lab? What? Like something straight out of a movie, huh?
This wasn't just some makeshift operation. This was a high-tech, state-of-the-art facility, suggesting years of research and development had been poured into this place. And what Chris and Jill find down there, well, it sends chills down your spine. It paints a terrifying picture of what Umbrella was truly up to.
So this wasn't just a creepy old mansion with a few zombies, huh? There was a bigger plan at play here. What were they researching down there?
The lab contained detailed records of Umbrella's bioweapons program. Remember those Cerberus, the zombie dogs we talked about earlier? Those weren't some accident, some fluke of nature. They were meticulously engineered, designed. The lab contained blueprints, notes, even early prototypes of other, even more horrifying creatures.
Okay, so the mansion was just a front, a testing ground for all of these bioweapons. It's like a twisted science experiment gone wrong.
Chris and Jill even find a slideshow detailing some of Umbrella's other creations. Hunters, these reptilian creatures, incredibly agile and deadly, and then there's a glimpse of something far more sinister, the Tyrant.
The Tyrant, that sounds ominous. What is that, some kind of super zombie?
The slideshow describes a bioweapon of immense power, a humanoid weapon. This thing was supposed to be their masterpiece, their ultimate weapon. But the information on the Tyrant, it's vague, almost like they were afraid of what they created.
Keeping their biggest, baddest creation under wraps.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you about Umbrella? They were playing with fire, weren't they?
They were playing God, and they knew it. And if you connect that back to those murders in Raccoon City, those families torn apart, well, you start to see a pattern of cover-ups, an attempt to contain the truth about what they had unleashed. But the truth always has a way of coming out, doesn't it?
And the mastermind behind all of this turns out to be Albert Wesker, their own STRS captain. Talk about a betrayal. Can you imagine finding out that the person you trusted most was the one pulling the strings all along?
It's a shocking twist, and what's even more disturbing is Wesker's complete lack of remorse. He doesn't care who he hurts, who he sacrifices to achieve his goals. To him, the rest of the team, they were expendable, pawns in his little game.
And his ambitions, they all revolved around Umbrella's research, didn't they? The T-Virus, the Tyrant, it was about control, power.
Precisely. Wesker, he saw the potential of the virus not just as a weapon, but as a way to reshape the world in his own image. He thought he was above it all, above the chaos and destruction.
Well, he was wrong, wasn't he? What was it they say? Pride comes before the fall. Because it doesn't end well for him, does it? The Tyrant.
The Tyrant impales him, seemingly killing him. A fitting end for a man who had orchestrated so much death and suffering. At least that's what it looked like.
Wait, are you saying he might have survived?
There are whispers, rumors, but nothing concrete. Still, there's something about the way he talked right before that final confrontation. About survival, about evolution, about transcending humanity. Makes you wonder.
Okay, now I have chills. Speaking of escaping certain death, didn't Chris and Jill have to race against the clock to get out of that lab? Something about a self-destruct sequence?
Talk about pressure. They're fighting their way through hordes of those bioweapons, desperately trying to get to their pilot, Brad Vickers, who's circling overhead in the helicopter. Running low on fuel, I might add. It's about as tense as it gets.
They actually made it out.
It's a testament to their strength and resilience. Both Chris and Jill demonstrate incredible courage, quick thinking. They refuse to give up.
Even in the face of such horror. It's inspiring, in a way. But even if they escape the mansion, what about the trauma? How do you just bounce back from something like that? I mean, how do you just go back to normal life after facing down a horde of bioweapons? I don't think I could ever sleep soundly again.
The scars run deep, both physically and mentally. The things they saw, the things they had to do to survive, it changes you.
Some things you just can't unsee. So what happens to them? Do Chris and Jill get to go home, put this whole nightmare behind them?
If only it were that easy. The mansion might be gone, engulfed in flames by the end of their escape, but the fallout from that night, it's far-reaching. It ripples outward.
What do you mean? What kind of long-term consequences are we talking about here?
Well, on a personal level, the surviving members of STRS, they're never the same. They've seen the darkest side of humanity, the potential for cruelty, the unchecked ambition that led to this outbreak.
It has to weigh on you knowing that kind of evil exists in the world.
The trauma, the guilt, it festers. Some find a way to channel those experiences, dedicating themselves to fighting against bioterrorism. Others, they're haunted by those memories, struggling to cope with the aftermath.
So it becomes a different kind of fight, not just for survival, but for their own sanity. What about Umbrella? Surely they couldn't just recover from something like this, the mansion, the lab, the secrets that were exposed.
You'd think an event that catastrophic would be the end of a corporation like Umbrella, right?
Yeah.
But their roots, their influence, it ran deep. And the way they'd structured everything, all compartmentalized, it meant that even with the loss of the mansion and key personnel, it wasn't a fatal blow. Not even close.
So even with the mansion destroyed, the research, the virus, it was still out there.
Oh, the nightmare was far from over. In fact, the events at the Spencer Mansion were just the beginning, a precursor to a much larger disaster that was about to unfold in Raccoon City.
Yeah, you've been dropping some heavy hints about Raccoon City this whole time. Sounds like we're headed towards a real catastrophe.
Let's just say that the horrors unleashed by Umbrella didn't stay confined to that mansion in the Arklay Mountains.
Man, talk about a cliffhanger. I guess we'll have to save that story for another deep dive. But before we go, there's one loose end I can't ignore. That conversation Jill overheard about destroy STARS. We never figured out who Barry was talking to.
Did we? It does make you wonder.
Right, like, what if there was someone else involved? Someone even Wesker was reporting to. Someone who wanted STARS out of the picture. Gone. Erased.
A shadowy figure pulling the strings from the very beginning. An unsettling thought.
It really makes you question everything we think we know about the Spencer Mansion incident, doesn't it? All those twists and turns, the betrayals, those secrets buried beneath the surface. And those lingering questions, they're what keep us coming back, digging deeper into the darkness, searching for answers, for the truth. And that truth, it's often far more terrifying than anything we could imagine.